Today, I will be demonstrating how to use sequence cards in therapy to elicit more spoken language out of the child. Oh, and I have the lovely Sonia here to assist me today. Thank you for being here with me today.
You're welcome.
So, what you're seeing here are different sets of sequence cards that can be used for different levels, for different developmental levels based on where your kid is at. For example, this first set of cards, you can see that there are 4 of them, which gives the kid more chances and more opportunities to speak about each step of the process. And what you want to do ultimately with sequencing cards is give the kids the cards and ask them to arrange them in the order that they would like. And then after they arrange them in an order, ask them to talk about them. Basically ask them to tell you a story about what's happening. Using sequencing cards is a great way to introduce new vocabulary. It's a great way for kids to learn temporal markers, meaning when to say first, next, and then last, so that when they're telling you stories or narratives, they organize their thoughts so it helps the listener pay attention and understand what they're saying. So this is the first level, and you can see that there are 4 of them, 4 cards. The next level, you can see that there are 3 cards, and they're still cartoon drawings. And for the level after that, you can use real pictures, and you can see that there are only 2 cards here. So these are the materials I'll be using in the video today. And next, I'll be demonstrating. So here we go. Okay, Sonia. Here's some picture cards, and I want you to put them in order for me. There are times when kids will just stare at what you're presenting to them. So this is where you give them verbal or visual prompts or cues. So here I'll say, Sonia, show me what you think happens first and then last by arranging the cards in that order.
With the snowman?
Exactly, yep.
First. This is the first one.
Okay.
That's the last one.
Okay, and what about these 2? Where do they go? I'm sure they're part of the story.
Yes. This one is second, and this one is third. Showing the snowman becoming complete.
Thank you for telling me that. I like how you use the words first, next, last. And this is the correct order because it shows the process of how the snowman started, where he had no facial features, and then he had a nose and 2 eyes, and then he added a smile, and then buttons, and then the last one is complete. So that's one way to use sequencing cards to elicit more language out of the kid, because you can use not only temporal markers, but you can use descriptors such as colors, shapes, sizes, and whatnot. A second way that you can use these kinds of cards is you can implement 2 sets of them and mix them all up together, and then ask the client to separate them. So, Sonia, can you separate these cards for me? Because you can see that there are different features and colors and shapes in them. This is where you give a verbal prompt or another cue. I'll help you out. You see how these have blue bowls in them? That means that these should be arranged together, and these cards do not have blue bowls in them. And then from that point, you can have them arrange them in order and just do exactly what I demonstrated a moment before. So these are the 4-step cards. Now for the next level of functioning, if your card is at a higher developmental level, you can use these cards. They have more color, they have more detail, and instead of 4 steps, there are 3 steps in the process. Okay, Sonia, can you put these cards in order for me? She needs another prompt because she's just looking at them. What do you think happens first, second, and then third in this story?
Okay. I think this happens first, this happens second, and this happens third.
You're absolutely right. Now, for this level of functioning, since there are more details involved, this is where you want your client to tell you more about what's happening. You heard her say, this is first, this is second, this is last. Now I'm going to ask her, Sonia, can you tell me the story that you're seeing based on the arrangement of the cards?
Do I have to say it how it's written on the card?
No, you don't have to read that.
Okay.
You could read that if you wanted to, but I just want you to tell me the story based on what you're seeing.
So the man is waiting in a field of flowers, just looking at the flowers. Then the man decides to go pick some flowers, and then he goes to the lady's house to give her the bouquet of flowers.
That's right. And I love how you used "and then" to describe the next step of the process. Also, I forgot to mention that when you use sequence cards, it's also a great way to introduce verbs into their vocabulary, because here it's showing that he wants flowers. He wants to pick flowers. And even behind these cards, it has the verb. This one's pick. So it tells you the verbs and the tenses of the verbs. So he wants to pick flowers, or he will pick flowers. The next step is he picks flowers. And the last step is he picked flowers, showing the past tense. So these sequence cards can serve many purposes. And again, you can use them in the way that I just demonstrated, or you can shuffle them up and have your client separate them and then tell you stories about them. For the last set of cards that I have, this is going to be for kids who are higher or at a higher developmental level than this one. So that's why there are only 2 steps, and they're real pictures. There are no more cartoon details or drawings. Sonia, please arrange these cards for me. Here's where she needs more verbal cues. Sonia, what do you think happens first and then last based on these 2 pictures? Okay. Now, can you tell me what's happening in these images? Because there's a story happening here.
So first, the little girl is playing with the blocks, and she's built up a big tower, and she is about to put the yellow block on top to complete her tower. Then it all comes crashing down, and she has a big accident, and the tower tumbles down, and she's like, oopsie.
Great job telling me the story and using so much detail in it. You can see that, typically sometimes kids will not give you a lot of detail when telling you stories, but here she said the yellow block, the big tower, crashing. So this is a demonstration and an example of how just 2 cards with pictures that are related to each other that show a process can elicit a lot of language out of the child. And you don't even have to stop there. You can ask your client, how many colors do you see in this picture? And when they tell you the number of colors, you can ask them, what colors do you see? What color is her shirt? And so forth. So ultimately, sequence cards are a great way to facilitate more speech out of your client And you can get so creative with them in many different ways. And again, it's a great way to incorporate new language, new vocabulary. It's a great way to help the client learn about temporal markers, again, to arrange their thoughts so that when they're telling stories or retelling events to listeners, organizing those thoughts helps the listener understand them more. So that's the video, or that's my demonstration on using sequence cards in therapy. Thank you so much, Sonia, for your help.
You're welcome.
And there you have it.